First of all, it is a pleasure to work with Senator Shaheen on this bill. Very happy to work together. We have the same goals in mind. And for the cynical people outside of Washington, D.C. that say there's never any Republican or Democrat cooperation, there's kind of a rule around here that Senator Shaheen and I are examples of, but it applies to all 100 senators. If you really want to get something done, you have to seek bipartisanship in this body. And I can quantify that this way. There's 53 Republicans, there are 47 Democrats, but if there were 53 Democrats and 47 Republicans, the same rule would apply. About 99% of the legislation that gets done around here has to have 60 votes to stop debate before you can even vote on the bill. So obviously, even if all 53 Republicans were voting together, and that doesn't happen very often, you still wouldn't get to 60 votes to pass a piece of legislation. So that's why almost every major piece of legislation that gets through here, and this example of Shaheen Grassley is just another example. It's because you seek bipartisanship, and it's just nice that that has to be that way. So addressing this issue, I could say I associate myself with the remarks of Senator Shaheen and sit down. But there's kind of a rule around the Senate. Everything that's been said on this bill has been said, but I haven't said it yet, and I'm going to say it. I recently introduced S. 2770, known as the Survivors' Bill of Rights, in the States Act of 2019 with Senator Shaheen and Senator Tillis. This measure is a companion to what Congresswoman Speer developed and introduced in the other chamber. It builds on legislation entitled the Survivors' Bill of Rights Act that we adopted in 2016. As chairman of the Senate Judiciary Committee in the last Congress, I worked closely with a young woman, Amanda Wynn, on the development of that 2016 measure prior to its introduction. Amanda, a survivor of sexual assault, founded and leads the nonprofit organization known as RISE, R-I-S-E. She also worked with Senator Shaheen on the same legislation, introducing the final version in this chamber. We incorporated that 2016 package of rights into an amendment that I offered to another measure before the Senate Judiciary Committee. In May 2016, that legislation passed this chamber 89-0. In October 2016, the House version, which was introduced later, was signed by the President. The bill that we introduced this month builds on the 2016 Survivors' Bill of Rights. It makes each state eligible to receive a federal grant to implement a similar package of rights for victims of sex crimes at the state level. Such rights include, for example, the right to know the results of your forensic exam, the right to have evidence preserved for a certain period, and the right to notice before your forensic kit is destroyed. A state also may use its Justice Department grants to preserve sexual assault evidence kits, reduce the number of kits awaiting testing, and extend additional assistance to crime victims under our legislation. Finally, the measure we introduced authorizes $20 million annually for each of the fiscal years 2021 through 2024 to support the implementation of the new grant program established by this bill. I urge my colleagues to join us in co-sponsoring the Survivors' Bill of Rights in the States Act of 2019. I thank Senator Shaheen for joining in this effort and leading this bill, and most importantly, to compliment her over a long period of her time in the Senate, and probably even before she came to the Senate, her commitment to working with me or with people generally on the issue of increased protection for victims of sexual assault. Again, I thank Congresswoman Speer and her staff for initiating this measure in the House and for working so hard to develop a bicameral, bipartisan measure. And I thank Senator Shaheen once again, and I yield the floor.